Hello everybody. This is our third and final video comparing the NDH20 from Neumann and the Ollo Audio S4R. The R for closed back. Yeah, because, there's an R in closed back. Anyway, this is the treble response comparison. This is going to be a relatively short video because, as you should know, I'm a little treble sensitive, and I don't want to sit here for 30 minutes and listen to treble. That's going to kill my eardrums. Also, a new subscriber of mine suggested that I try to control the plosives, the pop sounds, because, with the new microphone. The valid point. So I've switched pop filters, and hopefully this is a little bit better. Hopefully. I have another pop filter coming in tomorrow, and that's supposed to be the bomb, apparently. And hopefully that will be even better. All right, treble response. We know how the Ollo audio frequency response presents itself, at least what Ollo is trying to achieve. This is their standard version. We've seen this graph before. It's on their website. And when you look at it, this is a really, really flat response rate. Yeah, there's a bit of a peak here for the treble response, starting around 8K, going up to 10K, and it probably peaks around 12, 13, 14K, and then comes rolling back down around 20. And this is just an example. This is what they try to tune every driver to match. The black is for the closed back, the red is for the open back. And as far as I know, of all the frequency response charts that I've seen for all of my headphones, this one, in my opinion, is pretty flat. But what about Neumann? Well, here's the thing with Neumann. You go on their website and you try to find a frequency response chart, and I can't find one. I thought I saw one, but it's not here. You go to the data portion of their website, and nothing there. All this mumbo-jumbo that I don't really care about. And then you go to the downloads, and it takes you to a downloads page. And guess what? Their downloads page has a whole lot of marketing stuff that they want you to download so that you can spew as a reviewer. I bet that if you go on another website and you look up for the NDH20 review, a lot of the stuff that's mentioned in these pamphlets is what they will repeat. So instead, I had to go to SonarWorks. And SonarWorks does, in fact, have a frequency response chart. And here it is. Now, many people have commented that the NDH20 has a scooped out mids, and that's where you see this, kind of a bottom out area around probably 1100, 1200, 1300 K hertz around that area. And then you see a slight bump in the bass and sub-bass area. Now, this bump goes up to 6 decibels, and if you look at the treble response, it doesn't quite touch 6 decibels. And so, yes, there's a slight increase in the bass area. And then then this headphone does something rather weird. It goes up and down and up and down and up and down as if you're riding a hill, a series of hills. And that's the treble region. Does that seem strange to you? What do you think is going to happen when you have a pair of headphones that has a frequency response as this? Forget the bump in the bass. We've already talked about it. Forget the midtones. We've already talked about that. Let's talk about this weird mountainous region here. How would that impact the treble response for the NDH20? My hypothesis is that it will make things sound weird. Why is that? Because there are too many gaps. There's too many peaks. There are too many U-shaped areas here. 1, 2, 3. And then there's 4. It's a tiny one, but that's okay. You have at least 3, and there's significant dips and dives and rises and falls. And when that happens, you don't have a flat response rate, obviously. Compare that to the Ollo Audio's attempt at flatness. And yes, this is their benchmark and this is what they try to present, and who knows exactly whether every single pair of the headphones is actually going to match that. But here's the thing. Ollo Audio actually includes in the packaging the response chart for each driver. And so you can compare that to this. And I would have to say the chart that I received from my pair matches fairly closely. In response, this is what you can expect with the NDH20. All right, now that we have that picture, let's start the treble test. We're going to do Flight from the City from Johan Johansson. I have the NDH20 on my head, negative 23 decibels plugged into the AB switch, which itself is plugged into the Monolith THX 888 desktop amplifier, which is the standard we have been using for the NDH20 comparison today. And let's go forward. It's a very hollow sound. As I've said so many times about this song with these headphones, it makes the piano sound so... It sounds like there's an unnecessary echo with the piano. There's too much reverberation that bounces inside the ear cup, making it sound tinny and hollow and like you're inside a shipping container. There's supposed to be this electrical buzz in the background, which comes up, but the strange thing with the NDH20 is that both frequencies are competing for some strange reason. They're not even close on the spectrum, right? There's one end and then there's the other end. But unfortunately, there's just not a good mesh. Part of the problem, I think, is because these headphones are so closed off that soundstage is lost. The reverberation comes and it just bounces around inside the ear cup, which is what these headphones are doing. Let's skip ahead to midway. Now you have a violin, a cello, from probably a cello, and the piano. You can hear the separate instruments, but there's not much separation. There's too much melding of the two. So you have one high-frequency instrument like a cello or a violin, and another high-frequency instrument like a piano playing the higher registers and playing the lower registers. And it all gets kind of muddled together. Combine that with the closed-off feeling and hopefully have an idea of how silly these headphones make this song sound. So let's switch to the Ollo audio. And let's start this again. Much more open. The piano sounds more airy because of that openness. The echo is not there. There's a reverberation, there's a natural decay of the piano after each stanza, I suppose, whatever it is, a grouping of notes. And it falls away. Whereas with the NDH20, it just kept going, reverberating, and then bouncing inside, making this weird echo-ish experience. If I had to explain the two differences in the most basic terms, it would be, it's like I'm standing outside in an open field with really good loudspeakers pointed in my direction, and I'm hearing this concert. Whereas with the NDH20, it's like I'm sealed inside this hermetically sealed room with padded walls, as if I'm in a crazy loony place. And now the orchestra's told, go ahead and play. All that reverberation just bounces back and forth, and there's that muffled sound signature. People sometimes like that, but it's not the true experience. The violin, the cello, the piano all have a very separate tonality. Let's skip ahead halfway. The clarity is just phenomenal when compared to the NDH20. There's a lasting energy in the violin that wasn't present with the NDH20 because there's that rolled off top end with the NDH20. The cymbals are hitting, or it's bells, not cymbals. The bells are hitting and they're not peaky. The piano has this natural decay. The buzz in the background is present, but it's not interfering with any of the other frequencies. So, as far as the treble response goes for this song, continually, the NDH20, every time we have paired it with the song, has performed exactly the same, which is, it's like you're being shipped from Europe to the Americas, and you're stuck inside a shipping container, and it's just you and the pianist and the piano, and now you have to listen to it for the entire month that it takes to cross the ocean. It takes a month to cross the ocean, right? I don't know how long it takes. That is the experience you get with the NDH20. With the Ollo, it's a completely different sound signature. It's not a matter of slight degrees. It's not like, oh, it's a little bit more open. It's not that. It's closed off inside a hermetically sealed, padded room where they keep crazy people versus standing outside in an open field. I mean, you might still be outside the crazy place, but at least you're outside. Vastly different experiences. Let's go to 1,000 Years by the Piano Guys. And I guess you can hypothesize how the NDH20s are going to do. But we're going to start with the Ollo audio. We are at negative 22.5 decibels. Here we go. There are at least two pianos playing. Each has its own tonality because they're playing different portions of the keyboard, lower register, higher register. And now I think it's a bass instrument or it's a cello. I really should figure out what my orchestral instruments are. Very smooth response. The cello, let us assume it's a cello. The cello is clearly separate from the two pianos playing. There's a lot of information that's coming into my ears right now with those three instruments by themselves. They're doing so much complex dance in the music, but it's all being presented in a very precise, separated manner. Nothing is blending in. So I could pay attention to the cello if I wanted to, and it would be great. I could pay attention to the two pianos, and that would be fine for me. Or I could just sit back and relax and just let all those instruments play for me. And that's the benefit of having something like the Ollo, where all that stuff just comes, and you get to select which one you want to pay attention to. Yeah, there's a strumming going on right now, and I think it's with the cello, where they're strumming the strings, and it's a little muted, but it's still it's not over pronounced. Meaning, if there was a bump in the bass, that there would be a lingering sound signature with the strumming, and it's a very fast decay with the with the Ollo. Okay, let's stop, and let's switch to the NDH20. And let's go again. Increasing volume to negative 18. I can hear there are two different pianos, but their tonalities are just too melded for me to really say that there are two. At this portion of the song, I had already determined on the Ollo there are two very different pianos playing two different portions of the keyboard, right? Lower register, higher register. And with the NDH20, they just meld together. It just sounds like two pianos playing the same, exactly the same. Now with the cello playing, it's a very smooth experience, but the problem I have is that there's no real distinction. Now, the cello frequency is separated from the piano, but it sounds hollow, and there's still a little bit of a blending between the two because there's a carrying reverberation with the piano and with the cello, and those two start interfering. So the decay, in my opinion, seems to be slower with the NDH20. The strumming at this point on the cello is, I think, it probably about the same as the Ollo. Not overemphasized. But when the cello does play, there's that thicker reverberation that wasn't present with the Ollo. Okay, let's go to, I have, where did it go? I have that playlist and I can't find it now. Epic Piano? No, it wasn't that one. Drum solo, oh yeah, maybe it was. Maybe it was Take 5. Yes, the Dave Brubeck Quartet. Let's do this. I have the NDH20 on my head. You can hear the drum on the left ear cup, and then you have the piano on the right ear cup. And here comes the saxophone. I think it's a saxophone. You know, and for this song, which is a jazz song, this is really nice because it's smooth and it's really intimate and it's warm sounding. It's like you're sitting at a jazz bar with your martini in a dark table, and you're sitting back relaxing watching this, and there's smoke billowing from the back. I mean, I can just sit here and imagine myself in this place and I would be happy. There's no peakiness whatsoever with the saxophone. It's so gentle and soft and soothing. Now let's skip ahead to halfway. And now it's the drum and the piano playing. And the drum is clearly overpowering the piano. Not so much of a muddied experience, just not particularly clear between the two instruments. All right, so let's skip. Let's go back to the Ollo audio. And let's try this again. Much more airy. Less presence to the instruments, meaning it's less closed off, obviously, as we have said before. And there's a lot of energy in the saxophone. Whereas the NDH20 doesn't let the saxophone become peaky because the Ollo audio is flatter. It gets almost peaky for me, and I'm very treble sensitive. There's so much potential for the saxophone to become peaky on the Ollo. And at negative 18 decibels, I would not want to take this any louder. It's very precise and articulate and natural sounding, but in comparison with the NDH20, the Ollo sounds much more clinical, whereas the NDH20 sounds more intimate and warm and inviting. Let's skip ahead. Now it's the piano and the drums. The drum seems to have a slightly faster decay on the Ollo. And I think there's a little bit better separation of the piano and the drum on the Ollo as well. It's an interesting way to experience this one song on two vastly different types of headphones. I think this is really nice. The fact that you can listen to Take 5, and if you want a warm, inviting presentation, you put on the NDH20. Really smooth, doesn't get peaky. You're at a really comfortable volume, and the saxophone is just smooth as silk. No worries that your ears are going to get pierced. Whereas if you want something more analytical, more open sounding, you want all those details, you want the energy, then you switch to the Ollo. And the Ollo, not having changed the volume, and yes, the NDH20 is harder to draw than the Ollo, granted. But the Ollo just presents all of that energy, and it's still there, and it gets peaky, nearly peaky. And if you cranked up the volume hard enough, it would become ear piercing. And as I've said multiple times over the course of several videos comparing the Ollo, it's simply so much energy potential that you could push the headphones further and eke out the details. Whereas with the Neumann, you have to push them harder and harder and harder and harder to eke out similar type of detail because it rolls off. Right? It's rounded off at the ends. And that's a problem in the long run because if you don't have a powerful amplifier, you're going to hit a limit pretty fast. Because the NDH20 are 150 ohms, as we've spoken about before, whereas the Ollo are 32 ohms. And you do the math. Easier to drive versus harder to drive. Now, it's possible that if you drove the NDH20 to their maximum, you have the Audio GD 1 amp that has almost 10 watts of power. Balanced, but 10 watts of power. Then, yeah, maybe you could do that. Now, the Neumann, without significant change, I mean, internal change, you would have to redo some of the circuitry in order to get these to work balanced. If you were able to hypothetically get them to work balanced and use something like the 1 amp, then yeah, maybe you could get all the detail out that you wanted to. But as the headphone is right now, as a headphone that is one cord, it's not balanced, it's not easy to get the details for all the reasons we've talked about previously. As far as treble response is concerned, my position is this. The test playlist that we have shows repeatedly over and over and over again that the NDH20 is simply not a detailed headphone. It's warmer, it melds the frequencies more often than not, and in fact, it because of its closed-off nature, you lose a lot of that detail unless you push the headphones to louder and louder volumes. But my question then would be, how loud do you possibly want to make these headphones in a recording studio? And if you're not in a recording studio and you are recording at home, how loud do you want the headphones to be? And what other equipment will you have to get in order to get the headphones that loud, in order to eke out the details? But even if you could do that, you're still not getting the accurate response from these headphones because they're not flat, right? This is not flat. This is the total opposite of flat. This is some crazy person's doodling is what this is. I mean, I guess it's appropriate since this thing sounds like you're in a mental ward locked inside. And so this is the crazy drawing that mental patient draws on the walls, on the padded walls. This is it. Whereas a much more reasoned individual, much more sane, they've been taking their medication. This is the line they draw. Huge difference. Ginormous difference now. Yes, This is simply their standard. It doesn't mean they can actually get it to this particular straight line. I know that. I understand that. But repeated tests have shown that the Ollo audio sticks true to the flat neutral response rate, whereas the Neumann simply cannot. It can't do it. So there we are. That is the treble test. Overall, if you wanted to listen to just jazz, I could not recommend the NDH20 more because it sounds so good and smooth. If you listen to things that are really peaky and you don't like the peakiness, why are you listening to things that are peaky then? But if you're listening to things that are really peaky and you don't like the peakiness, then the NDH20s are a good option because they will in fact roll that off. Right? And if you feel as if you want a more intimate experience with all of your music, then you have the NDH20, which will give you an intimate experience. Now, it's interesting if you think about it, how the NDH20 would match up with a warm amplifier / DAC, with, say, the Mojo. How would it pair up? Well, I suspect if that were to happen, that the sound signature would be even more muffled because you have warm on warm. You have closed off on closed off. And whereas the THX is more clinical, it's more precise, it's not coloring the sound, and just the headphones are. But if you have colored sound coming into colored sound being more colored, then you come up with a crazy person's drawing like this, right? That's the way I look at it. I hope this has been of some help. My next video in a little bit is going to be my conclusion about the NDH20 because I am done. I've had these headphones for a very long time and I was waiting to have the Ollo in my hands. And now that I've done this, I can finally upload a conclusion. Have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon.